Hey there nation, welcome to the show where we help you to play miniatures wargaming on a budget. It is I, Commander CheapSkate, and we are back with another edition of the Underhive Wars. This is a series of Necromunda battle reports for our Dominion campaign for Sector 7, and this is battle report number 22. And it's fought between my two friends, Dark Lord Mac as well as Odeth. And in case the introduction music didn't give that away, Dark Lord Mac is playing Section 8, a Venators gang, versus Odeth with the People Eaters, his brand new Chaos Cultist gang. So this one's kind of an interesting battle report for two reasons. One, as of late, the Book of Perils came out, I think about a month ago when this video hits out. So because of that, the rules for Venators have changed a little bit. They're allowed to start taking over territory like other gangs can within Necromunda, so they'll no longer get paid by the reputation. In case you didn't know, originally how Venators earned money for their gangs is that they took the reputation times by 10, and that's how they got paid. This time around, though, with the new updates from the Book of Perils rule, Venators just take territories just like everybody else now. So that's exactly for one of the first rules. And the second reason why this game is so interesting as well is because my friend Odeth has pretty much done away with his old gang. His old gang of Chaos Cultists were called the Dustmen. He decided to cut those guys loose and start to scratch with a brand new gang. These guys are called the People Eaters, and so this is the debut for these guys as well. Now granted, it does mean he's in last place now because he only has 1 point reputation, but at the same time though, his last gang wasn't doing very too well as well. So with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to play some background music real quick. If you want to see exactly what we're bringing for this one, go ahead and pause and take a look at your leisure. So with that being said, let's get this battle report on a roll. Alright, so going to talk about the scenario for this one. The scenario is called Tunnel Skirmish. The objective is to take out as many of the enemy as possible. You earn points for each one that you take out. 3 points for leaders, 2 points for champions, and 1 point for everyone else. Whoever has the most points by the end of the scenario ends up being the winner. For the rewards, for credits, the winner earns 2d6 times 10 credits, while the loser earns d3 times 5 credits. For experience, each fighter who participates in the battle report gets +1 experience point, and the leader of the winning gang also gets 1 experience point. For reputation, the winner earns 2 points reputation for winning the scenario, while both gangs earn 1 point reputation for fighting against each other for the very first time. And of course, if anybody bottles out or loses, you lose 1 point reputation. So with the scenario rules over with, let's go and talk about the battle plan real fast. So here we are once again, ladies and gentlemen, back into the tombs once again. The tombs, of course, are the underground caverns that we like to use for our Necromunda battle reports. So as you can see here, my friend Odeth with his People Eaters are deployed on the near side of the table, while my other friend Dark Lord Mac with his Section 8 Venators are deployed on the far side of the table. Now, I'm not really sure what the battle plan is for each of these guys. I mean, it's pretty straightforward. They're in the tombs, so it's going to be really close combat and close fire support. A lot of close quarters combat for the most part. So, because like I said before, I'm not really playing this game. I'm just kind of taking photos for my two friends, so you'll have to ask them what their battle plan was. So with the battle plan portion over with, let's go and talk about deployment real fast. Alright, so starting with the People Eaters, over here on the left hand side you have Roar, which is the champion who's armed with a heavy stubber, and right in front of him I believe that is Binbag. That guy is a Hellot cultist armed with an auto gun as well as an auto pistol as well. I forgot to mention Roar also has the Inert to Insanity as well as the Infiltrate skill as well. He's also packing out a pistol. Now in that center chamber right next to him on the right hand side, that's where a majority of his gang is located at. In the back, that is King Slender, that is his cult demagogue. He's got a mesh armor, cult icon, weapon with a shotgun with a solid and scatter shot. He's got a sword as well as an auto pistol as well. He's got the devotion, inured to insanity, as well as commanding presence skills. Now, right in front of him, starting from the left and working way right, that is Socket Head as well as Gazer, followed by Half Face. All three of those guys are equipped exactly the same with flak armor, auto pistols, as well as mauls. And up in the front, that is Nerf Herder. He's also equipped with a flak armor, auto pistol, as well as a maul as well. And that pretty much makes up the deployment here on the left-hand side for the People Eaters. Now over to the right hand side of the deployment, on the left center chamber there, in the back, that is Snarl, that is a cultist disciple who's got a heavy stubber as well as an auto pistol. He's got flak armor, he's got the Inure to Insanity as well as the infiltrate skills. Leading him up in the front, that is the Oculoid, who is a Hellot cultist who's armed with flak armor, auto gun as well as an auto pistol. Now over there on the right hand side, taking point, that is Hoodie. Hoodie's a Hellot cultist who's armed with flak armor, auto gun, auto pistol. Behind him is Blood Razor, the Cult Witch, who's got flak armor, a two-handed axe as well as an auto pistol. This character is also Witch with the Inure to Insanity special rule as well as a Dark Shield psychic power. And then right next to him on the right hand side, that is Nerf number 1, that is a Chaos Familiar. He's owned by Blood Razor in this case. He's got Omen of Fortune, Precognition, Psychic Manifestation as well as Clamber skills. And that pretty much makes the deployment for the people leaders in this one. Alright, so talk about the deployment for Section 8. Over on the left-hand side in the back, that is AWOL Al. He is a Hunt Champion. He's got Mesh Armor, Axe, as well as a Bolts Gun with the Fast Shot skill. Right in front of him is Noose Taggart, who's a Hunter with a Shotgun with Solid and Scattered Shot. He's got a Stub Gun as well as Mesh Armor. He's also got a Spinal Injury put on him as well. Over to the right-hand side is another 2 Hunters. In the back, that is the Hunt Champion Red Cap Killer. He's armed with a Bolt Pistol as well as a Plasma Pistol. He's also got Mesh Armor. He's got the Gunfighter skill as well. And then in front of him, that is Fancy Ling. He's a Hunter. He's got a Body Glove, Mesh Armor, Last Carbine, as well as a High Strar Energy Shield. He's also got Hasvan Sar Legacy as well. And that's the newest Hunter to it, joined up with the Section 8 Venators. And finally, the right-hand deployment for Dark Lord Mac. In the back, in the center, that is the Saracen, that is his hunt leader. He's armed with a Last Pistol, Sword, Hot Shot Power Pack, Armored Underglove, as well as Mesh Armor. He's got the Commanding Presence as well as the Overseer ability. And then right in front of him is the 3 more Hunters. In the back, right up front of the Saracen, that is Val the Impaler. He's under his arm with a Harpoon Launcher, Bolt Pistol, as well as Mesh Armor. He's got a Humiliating Injury. After him, going downward, that is Buzzkill. Another Hunter is armed with a Chainsword, Plasma Pistol, as well as Mesh Armor. He's got an eye injury. And then right in front of them, that's the Kurgan. He's got Twin Servo Claws as well as Mesh Armor. And then finally, the far right hand side in the back, that is Red Harvest, another Hunt Champion. He's armed with a Long Rifle, Maul, as well as Mesh Armor. He's got the Fast Shot and Clamber skill. And then in front of him is Mayday, another Hunter. She's armed with Mesh Armor, Axe, as well as a Last Gun. And that pretty much makes up the deployment for Section 8. So with deployment over with, we go directly to the top of turn number 1, and both Dark Lord Mac as well as O'Death roll off for initiative to see who goes first. Alright, so that takes us directly to the top of turn number 1, and the Chaos Cultists man get the initiative on this one, so the people leaders go first. And the first thing that O'Death does, that he activates King Slender. King Slender, because he's got the Commanding Presence ability as well as a Cult Icon, gets to activate 4 fighters all at once, and he activates the Nerf Herder, Gazer, Half Face, as well as Socket Head. As you can see, they both do a double movement with her Nerf Herder as well as Gazer going to the left hand side. King Slender is behind them in the center, and then on the right hand side you got Half Face leading the charge on the right, as well as Socket Head following up in support. In reaction to that, Dark Lord Mac decides to activate the Saracen first of all, who uses the Overseer ability on the Kurgan. So because of the Kurgan gets 2 sets of actions. So as you can see here, he basically took 4 movement actions all the way across the battlefield right into the center chamber of the tombs as well. And because he's also a leader, he also activates 2 more fighters. So because, as you can see here, he activates both Buzzkill taking point, followed up by Val the Impaler. Those guys make double movements over to the far right hand chamber there in the center row of the tombs. Meanwhile, from the right-hand deployment area for O'Death, he then activates Snarl, who then also activates the Oculoid as well. The Oculoid as well as Snarl both take double movements over to the right-hand chamber, so that way they're aiming down and providing overwatching fire down the center corridor, leading towards the other side where Section 8 is located at. Meanwhile, Dark Lord Mac then activates AWOL Al, who then also activates Noose Taggart as well. Noose Taggart does a double movement over to the center left-hand chamber for the tombs. At the same time, he also moves up a normal movement allowance with AWOL Al, so kind of gets him into like a normal Overwatch position. Now, AWOL Al does try to take a pot shot, I believe, with his bolt gun against, I believe, it's the Nerf Herder, but unfortunately for him, though, he missed his shot, so not much really came from that. Meanwhile, O'Death does try to start assaulting on the left-hand flank as well, activating Roar, who then also activates Binbag. Binbag makes a double movement up to the crossroads there. Same thing with, what's his name? Roar also goes there as well, and kind of occupies positions as well, and kind of takes cover as well as provide overwatching fire. Next, my friend Dark Lord Mac then activates Red Cap Killer, who then also activates Fancy Ling, and both those guys take double movements towards that left-hand corridor, so they're ready to ride across the passageway from AWOL Al as well, so that way they can start assaulting on the left-hand side. Meanwhile, the Chaos Cultists of the People Eaters also start assaulting the right-hand side. My friend Odeth then activates Bloodrazor, who's also then activates the Alkaloid as well. So because of the Alkaloid takes point, followed by Bloodrazor, and then finally Nerf number 1 is also right behind him as well, getting ready to assault there on the right-hand corridor. And then finally, Dark Lord Mac then activates Red Harvest, who also activates Mayday. They both do a double movement to the the right-hand corridor as well, right behind Val the Impaler, so that way they can start shooting down that corridor if they need to. And since there was no shooting or combat for the most part, or nobody got injured anyways, we skip the end phase, and that takes us directly to the end of turn number 1. Alright, so that takes us to the overhead shot at the end of the battle of turn number 1, so you can see the entirety of the battlefield. As you can see, the People Eaters are starting to make their advance straight across the table, getting ready to assault down the left as well as right-hand main axis corridors of the tombs, and they're also kind of bunched right there in the center as well. At the same time, as you can see in this photo, Dark Lord Mac is also setting his forces along the right as well as the left-hand corridors in order to intercept and to attack as well. It's only going to be a matter of time before these two gangs actually come to blows. So that being said, we go directly to the top of turn number 2, and my friends roll off for initiative to see who goes first. Alright, so that takes directly to the top of turn number 2, and the Chaos Cultists get to go first once again on this one. They get to take the initiative. At the same time, my friend Odeth decides to activate, what's his name? Snarls, and his name is. So because, Roar. So because Roar is a cult disciple, he also activates another ganger as well, and that ganger is also the Bin Bag. So both those guys take pot shots directly at Noose Taggart. Now, unfortunately, for Odeth, Bin Bag missed his shots. However, Roar, did not miss his shots. He actually managed to land 2 shots with his heavy stubber directly into Noose Taggart as well. And not only did he manage to hit and wound him twice, he also managed to put him out of action as well. So because that Noose Taggart suffered an enfeebled injury, so because that drops his toughness down to 2 in that case, and so he goes directly out of the battle port. Now, in order to make that shot, my friend Odeth did roll a 6. As you notice there, we also got a tactics card right there called Lucky Find. And the reason why we're playing that tactic is because of the difference reputation points between the People Eaters versus the Venators of Section 8. So because of that, my friend Odeth does have 2 tactics cards that he's allowed to use in this one because of the difference in the 2. And the Lucky Find, what it ends up doing is that it automatically passes the ammo check right off the bat, so that way it doesn't worry about rolling for it for Roar. And that pretty much makes it the action phase on this side. So, smelling blood in the water, my friend Dark Lord Matt then activates the Kurgan and then charges directly into the back behind Bin Bag, and he attacks him with both of his claws. Now, unfortunately for unfortunately for my friend Dark Lord Matt, he did not cause a out of action roll when he ended up attacking Bin Bag. So because all I did is manage to put a serious injury on him. So because of the two of them are still kind of technically speaking locked in combat. Now, this is a bad spot for Odeth to be in because during the next turn, if my friend Dark Lord Matt wants to, you can just do a coup de grace real quick and just finish him off and kill off that guy and put him out of action if you wanted to. So things are not looking very good for Bin Bag at this point. In response, my friend Odeth then activates Snarl, who then also activates Hoodie real quick. So you can see there, Hoodie does a double movement directly into the center of the chamber, so that way he can put his assault against the Kurgan. He does try to shoot during this turn with Snarl, with Roar. Snarl, I'm sorry. He tries to shoot a Snarl with his heavy stubber as well, and you can see he kind of has line in sight towards Val the Impaler, but unfortunately for him though, he missed his shots just because of the fact that the guy was partially obscured by the tunnel walls, so because of that he's perfectly fine. However, sensing an opportunity, my friend Dark Lord Matt then activates Buzzkill, who then charges across the chamber directly into Hoodie, manages to get to him in close combat as well. Now, unfortunately for Dark Lord Mac, he didn't manage to put out of action Hoodie. He did put a serious injury on him as well as a flesh wound. But like I said before, that's actually a pretty bad place for him to be at because the next turn he can put a coup de grace on that guy, and then Dark Lord Mac will then net himself some experience points by putting that Chaos Cultist out of action as well. So, not being deterred, my friend Odeth decides to kind of continue his assault there on the right-hand side. He first activates Bloodrazor, who then also activates the Alkaloid. The Alkaloid moves up normal 5 inches directly into Val the Impaler and cuts loose with his auto rifle. Now, he does manage to hit Val the Impaler twice, but unfortunately for him, though, he fails to wound both times. So because of that, Val the Impaler is currently pinned. At the same time, Bloodrazor then activates his psychic abilities and gets Dark Shield off. So because of everything within 3 inches of him, for his friends anyways, earn +1 to their saves. So because of that now, both characters are packing 5-up saves like they're wearing mesh armor, so that part was kind of cool as well. Meanwhile, on the left-hand side of the battlefield, my friend Dark Lord Mac decides to activate Fancy Ling. He charges directly into the fallen Bin Bag and decides to finish him off with a coup de grace. As you can see in this photo, puts a grievous injury onto Bin Bag, so because that Bin Bag goes directly out of action, and he will also miss out his next battle report because he was injured. Now, because Fancy Ling was activated by Red Cap Killer also moves up right behind the Fancy Ling and opens up with both of his weapons, going directly into Snarl, I believe his name is. Snarl does get hit with the, I believe it's the bolt gun when it ends up hitting him. The plasma pistol kind of goes wide, and unable to wound him, so because of that, Snarl is kind of pinned at this point, so he's kind of laying down on the ground and just, not trying to get shot at for the most part. So in response to this, my friend Odeth then activates his leader, King Slender, then also activates the 4 Chaos Cultists right next to him. He charges in directly, Nerf Herder directly into the Kurgan. He also sends in, I believe that's Gazer, directly into Fancy Ling as well. And then right behind him, King Slender's bringing up the back with Sokka Head as well as Half Face bringing up support as well. And they start pushing their advance towards the left-hand column. So because of that, Bin Bag as well as the Nerf Herder go directly into close combat. Meanwhile, on the far right-hand side, Red Harvest also activates Mayday, and because of they both open up with their weapons, Mayday's shots kind of go wide. However, it's the Red Harvest, the champion of the long round, actually does the most damage. He originally shoots and manages to hit the Oculoid. So because of the Oculoid doesn't get wounded, however, he just kind of goes down. He just gets pinned at that point. Because he's down, it actually goes directly to the next guy, which is the Blood Razor, which he does manage to hit as well as wound as well. But because Blood Razor carries 2 wounds, he's still got 1 more left. So technically speaking, he is pinned and he's not seriously injured at this point. And finally, to wrap up the turn, the last thing that ends up happening is that Dark Lord Matt then activates the Saracen, who does a double movement right behind Red Harvest as well as Mayday, so that way he can join with the rest of his gang and start participating in the battle report. And that pretty much finishes up turn number 2 on this one. So with the action phase over with, we go directly to the end phase. And unfortunately for my friend Odeth, both Hoodie as well as the Oculite are both still seriously injured. They're both laying on the ground still bleeding up, and they're powerless to do anything until the next turn. So that being said, that pretty much draws out turn number 2. So here's a close-up of the battlefield for turn number 2 so that we can see what's going on during this turn. As you can see, my friend Odeth is pushing his advance on the left-hand column, attacking with his Helots as well as his leader along that left-hand axis, heading towards Red Harvest, Fancy Ling, as well as the Kurgan, with his forces kind of columning in right behind him on a bottleneck. At the same time, the far right-hand side, though, his assault on the right-hand side is starting to crumble. Those guys were taken down by both Red Harvest as well as Mayday, and also in the back there you can see Aurora in the background. They're trying to catch up to us so that we can start shooting as well. Meanwhile, the fighting in the center is pretty much owned by Dark Lord Mac. He did manage to seriously injure Hoodie, so because of that, he's laying on the ground bleeding out at this point. And that pretty much makes up round number 2. So with turn number 2 over with, we go directly to the top of turn number 3, and both of my friends will offer initiative to see who goes first. Alright, so that takes directly to the top of turn number 3 for the Venators this time get to go first. So Dark Lord Mac activates the Kurgan, and unfortunate for him though, he just flubbed his attack roll, so not much really happens between the Kurgan as well as Nerf Herder number 1. They're still both engaged in close combat. Meanwhile, Odeth then activates Blood Razor, who then also activates Nerf number 1, and because of that, they both kind of retreat backwards using double movements in order to do that, so that way they're not being shot at. So Blood Razor is ducking over the left-hand side, while Nerf number 1 is right behind him as well. As you can see in the bottom of the page there, you can see Snarl, who actually managed to fail his shooting test when he opened up with his stubber, failed his ammo roll test as well, so his weapon is jammed at this moment. So jumping back over to the left-hand side, we start with Red Cap Killer, who also activates Fancy Ling. Fancy Ling finishes off Gazer in close combat, managed to put him out of action with a hand injury. So because of that, Gazer will have a -1 to his weapon skill by the end of this scenario being done. However, it's at this point that my friend Odeth decides to play a second tactic with his Melter Trap. So because of that, the Melter Trap does go off. When he rolls a d6, he rolls a 1, and when that happens, that huge explosion takes place right in front of Fancy Ling. Not only does he manage to wound as well as to put down Fancy Ling, he puts him out of action, but when he rolled for the injury, he rolled a 66, which is a memorable death. So because of that, Fancy Ling just gets killed right off the bat, being atomized by a Melter Trap, and Gazer nets himself 2 experience points, 1 for taking out Fancy Ling, and also creating a memorable death from that aspect as well. So just like that, my friend Dark Lord Mac just lost a very expensive member of his gang who's worth 130 credits just by himself. So continuing on the action phase, my friend Odeth then decides to go next. He activates his general, the gang leader King Slender. King Slender and Sockhead both charge directly into Red Cap Killer, engage him in close combat. And I believe it was King Slender that managed to put the 2 wounds onto Red Cap Killer as well. So because of that, Red Cap Killer is seriously injured. He's laying on the ground bleeding out, which is a bad place for him to be at because if my friend waits for the next turn, Odeth can put him out of action with a coup de grace. At the same time, he also moves up half face as well, so that way he can lend some support to Nerf number 1, Nerf Herder against the Kurgan right there in the center of the battlefield. So the next turn we go directly to the Section 8. First of all, my friend then activates Buzzkill, then puts a coup de grace directly onto, what's his name, Hoodie right in the middle of the battlefield, puts a grievous injury on him. And since because it's a simple action, he does take a basic action of normal movement and moves over 5 inches directly towards where the Oculoid is located at. To which, of course, he puts him into a critical injury as well when he puts a coup de grace on him. And the reason why that takes place is because he's within 12 inches of his gang leader, the Saracen, and the Saracen decides to use his Overseer ability, and he puts it directly onto Buzzkill. So because of that, Buzzkill gets another set of actions. Buzzkill puts a coup de grace onto the Oculoid as well, making that guy suffer a critical injury. So because of that, he only roll up at the end of the battle report to see exactly what happens to him. And he takes his last basic movement ability to go 5 inches right next to Val the Impaler to help them get back on his feet as well. And that pretty much makes up turn number 3 for this one. So the action phase over with, we go directly to the end phase. During the end phase, Val the Impaler does survive his injury roll from being pinned, so he goes back onto his feet again. So he's ready to take place to participate within the battle report. At the same time, Red Cap Killer also managed to get back to his feet again with a flesh wound, getting back on his feet. Now, he does suffer 1 to his toughness, which makes him easier to injure, but this guy could also still fight. He is a gang champion armed with 2 very devastating pistols, so this guy is not counted out whatsoever. However, it's at this point of the battle report that my friend Odette decides to call the game at this point because he doesn't really want to lose any more Chaos Cultists that he already has. So because of that, takes us directly to the end of the game with the Venators of Section 8 securing another victory for themselves. So that being said, ladies and gentlemen, we'll go directly to the after action report to the post game because this battle report is now officially over. Alright, first of all, let's talk about the people eaters real quick. They suffered 4 injuries. That was the Oculoid, Hoodie, Binbag, as well as Gazer. Now, the Oculoid suffered a critical injury, and my friend Odette decided not to pay the fine to have this guy be revived by the doc. So he decided to go into to roll a d6 to see exactly what happens to him as a result. He rolls a 6, so because of that, the Oculoid does actually survive, and he goes into recovery. So he doesn't suffer any injuries whatsoever, but he will miss out on his next battle report to show the fact that he is, healing up. Hoodie and Binbag both suffered grievous injuries, and they also go to recovery as well. And Gazer also suffered a hand injury, losing 1 to his weapon skill, and he goes into recovery as well. Now, for advancements, nobody really advanced at this time. However, for the Chaos Cultists, though, they have to pick a member of their team to be a member of the Dark Ritual that they do as a post-action. Now, the Dark Ritual goes off successfully. They actually end up getting bonuses for their gang that they can use for the next scenario. However, this is not the case. Half-Face was randomly chosen to be the sacrifice for the Dark Ritual, and when my friend Odette rolled the dice to see if the ritual succeeded or not, it failed, and because that Half-Face got transformed into a Chaos Spawn. Now, while Half-Face is a Chaos Spawn, though, he actually ends up being an actually pretty deadly member. His movement is D6, so that is kind of random for him. However, his weapon skill is 3. He's got 5 strength, 6 toughness, 3 wounds, and 3 attacks. So he has no more weapons to use. He just basically fights in close combat, but at the same time, the Half-Face becomes what's known as the Nameless One and becomes really super deadly in close combat. Like I said, nobody else advanced at that point as well. Now, from their territories, they do have a settlement. They earn 1 point of reputation from that settlement as well as 60 creds. At the merchant phase, they earn 10 credits from the scenario as well as 60 credits from the settlement, combining for a grand total of 70 creds. With those 70 creds, they hired a new Hellot cultist named Half-Face 2. They equipped him with an auto pistol maul as well as a flak armor, and they take their 5 remaining credits and put in the stash. For the reputation, they do earn 1 point of reputation for fighting against the Section 8 for the very first time, as well as 1 from their settlement, but they lose 1 point of reputation for losing the battle report, netting them a grand total or reputation of 2. Their new record now is at 0 wins as well as 1 loss, and their new gang rating now is at 1,355 points. Alright, so now on to Section 8. Section 8 did suffer 2 injuries. Those are Noose Tacker as well as Fancy Ling. Noose Tacker suffered an enfeebling injury, dropping him down 1 toughness, so now he's only toughness 2 now, and he also goes in recovery. Fancy Ling, however, he died a memorable death, so because of that, he's killed outright and loses all of his equipment. For advancements, Buzzkill did actually level up to level 2, earning +1 to his movement, so now he's movement 6. From their territories, they actually have their settlements, so they earn 1 point of reputation from their settlement, as well as 20 creds from it, and they also captured a new territory called Needleways, which means that they can now infiltrate 3 fighters every battle report. So they can choose 3 of their fighters, have them infiltrate wherever they want to, starting on the 2nd round, so that's actually pretty good for them. From the merchant, they earned 70 credits from the scenario, as well as 20 credits from the settlement, earning them a grand total of 90 credits in all. They hired a new hunter named Manchurian black. They equipped them with twin last pistols as well as mesh armor. For the reputation, they earned 2 points of reputation for the scenario, as well as 1 point of reputation from fighting against the people eaters for the very first time, as well as 1 for their settlement, netting their whole total pool of reputation points to 13 total. Their new record now is at 3 wins as well as 2 losses, and their new gang rating now is at 1,505 points. So that's a good do with this one, you guys. As always, please feel free to like, comment, and or subscribe. Your guys' input is invaluable to us as always. Also check us out on Instagram, Facebook, as well as blogger.com for all this greatest news about the hobby aspect of this channel. That's a good do for this one, you guys. We'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace out.